Hello and good morning, you guys. What is going on? It's Holly, of course. I wanted to come on here because I'm about to start my work day. I just did my skincare. I'm letting it sit before I get ready. And here's the deal. I did a reading a couple days ago. By the way, just a little side note for you guys. If you're someone who is tapping into your gifts or like working on your gifts or what have you, this is your reminder, the thing that you maybe need to hear. When you have like shifts in consciousness, when you have a leveling up, when you have a moment in your life where you're like, oh my God, everything makes sense. Like, what the heck? Like, things piece together. I know you've had this in your spiritual awakening. When you have a shift in perspective, a shift in consciousness, you can never not see life like that again. Just anything, even if it's not even around the spiritual realm, but in general, like let's say you find something out about someone that you didn't know before, but it's like a big deal. You can never look at them the same, correct? So it's the same way in your psychic gifts. It's the same way in your abilities to connect to the divine. When you have big changes in the way that you see life or the way that you connect with the divine, or you have a big change in what you understand about yourself and how you are the way that you are, okay? It will change the way that you channel. Forever. It will change the way that you connect in. And I always say, this is not what this video is about, but I do think that it's important that I talk about this. I always say that people say, how can I, level up my gifts? How can I, use my gifts more? How can I, whatever the case is, blah, blah, blah. And the answer is always you have to connect more, because the more you connect on a personal level, the more you will shift in consciousness, and also the more you will get yourself into that like gap where the messages come through, right? Like I'm no different than anyone else. The thing that makes me different, the thing that makes me set apart is one, of course, I'm like, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm doing for a living and has been for years. But like I intentionally take time to connect to the divine. And within my career, within my business, I'm doing multiple readings every single day for people. And when I do that, I'm literally having dialogue with the higher realms, with spirit. I call in spirit every single time to be the one giving the messages, and I'm the mouthpiece for that. So of course, I'm going to get a lot of insight and information about life, about people, of course, because the messages are usually directed for them. And also, a lot of times the messages that come through are things that could be really beautiful advice for the collective. And it's always like, damn it, like I have to recreate this video because everyone needs to hear this. And this brings me into what I want to talk about today. So I'm gonna get my coffee. Please hold on. I'm also gonna light my candles for the day because we're gonna be talking. I'm gonna turn on my heated blanket and we're gonna get this party started. And no, I am not gonna edit this because you guys know me. If I'm doing a channeled message, like I don't see the point in, why would I don't need to edit it, right? Because when the messages come through from spirit, like they come through. So they need to fully be embodied. And today I'm going to talk about receiving with guilt and shame and why it's important that we understand this, okay? So in this reading that I did for this client, and they've given me permission to regurgitate the messages because it really was for the collective. In fact, she was like, you could post it on YouTube. But I was like, I'm gonna re-speak it out here because I think that it's gonna be really helpful. It'll be more impactful, I think, for you guys. So the message was about having guilt and shame when receiving from the divine, when receiving from people, and how this is literally poison to us being able to move forward in life. Because what we do is we create this guilt and shame. We create this guilt whenever people give things to us, or when we receive certain things, because it's like, well, somebody else should have had that, or maybe I should, if someone gives me something, then I need to make sure I do something to overcompensate for that gift or for that thing, right? Like, oh, they've given me time and energy, so now I have to overly give them time and energy. And there's a couple things here that I was getting. I was getting a vision about I literally saw like a brain, okay? And this like termite, almost like insect, like squeezing its way through the brain, okay? So imagine how the brain looks like, in science or whatever. And it was like digging, it was burrowing to the back of the head. So like back here. And the message, they kept making it really clear, it's buried in, it's like, this is a belief around having guilt and shame that is so subconscious, that is so buried into society's brain, okay? Especially people who identify with, feeling like you have to help everybody and give to everybody, mother people, like that's who this message is for. If that is you, listen up. And then have guilt for when the universe brings you thing. Or maybe you may feel like, why is everybody else getting everything and I'm not? And so the message here was this like termite thing is literally buried in the subconscious mind. It's almost like the last thing, the last straw, that if we could get it and bring it to the awareness and let it go, it would be the thing that would completely rid, like society would rid, you would rid whoever is dealing with this literal poison from the inside out, from like society altogether. And there will be more people that would be open to receiving things. And when we have guilt and shame around receiving, even if we don't even realize that we do, even if it's a subconscious thing, it still affects our life. It affects the things that we attract into our life. It affects every aspect, every area of our life, because we are so ingrained to feel bad, or to make other people feel comfortable, or to feel guilty because we got XYZ, right? And the message was that you have to learn to fully embody receiving, but not just from people, but actually believing that you are worthy of receiving. And it's kind of like this message about, the more that you can become aware, the more that you can really stand in your power strongly and firmly. Because when we have this subconscious belief that we have guilt and shame around receiving things, okay, of course you have to get to the root of that in your own way, if you want, right? I think that in self-development and in certain areas of life, we have kind of, I think it's been almost like infiltrated by these beliefs that tell us that, we have to always get to the root of things. And I think that sometimes that can be even more harmful, because then we're constantly thinking that there's more to get. And then we get into this constant cycle of healing, AKA keeping ourselves in suffering that's not necessary. Like it's so big right now in the spiritual world, in the coaching industry, and all of it. It's very much like heal this trauma. It's like, oh my God, at what point do we just say enough with the like trauma? Oh my God, I just spit everywhere. Enough with the trauma. Like, let's move on and let's just embody the fact that we had shit happen to us, and now it's time to be in our power. Because every time we give our power away, okay, every time you say like, I'm unhealed, or I am this way because this person did this or that, or whatever it is, every time you do that, you're literally taking yourself out of your power. And when you are not willing or open to receiving because you feel bad about it, whether it's, resting. So I'm being reminded of this vision. So let's say you are someone who rests, okay? Like you are like, you work 40 hours a week, or you work really hard, whatever the case is, you work a lot. Maybe you take care of kids all the time. And at the end of the day, you want to take some time to just rest and just be, okay? It's 7 days in a week, okay? Let's say that you have 4 different projects that you want to get done throughout the week. And let's say you plan to do them in the evening 4 days out of the 7, okay? The other 3, you're like, I'm going to rest, I'm just going to chill, I'm going to sit, okay? These projects may only take a half hour to 2 hours, whatever, but there's something that just like, you just do, and then you'll be done. And it's going to make you feel really good. It may feel like an energy leak almost because you haven't gotten it done, and so you're constantly thinking about it. And so let's say you start the week off on a Monday and you're like, since today is Monday, I've had a long day, I'm going to spend the evening just resting, Okay, so you sit down to watch TV or to do whatever it is that you do, whether it's whatever your secret thing is. Maybe you like to read a book, or maybe you like to color, maybe you like to paint, maybe you like to organize and clean. I don't freaking know. But whatever it is that you like to do, let's say that you sit down to do that, okay? And immediately you start this overcritical thinking of guilt and shame around doing what it is that you're doing, because you have guilt and shame around receiving time to just sit. You're literally guilting yourself. You're being XYZ because you feel bad. And this is where Spirit's like, it's not even you. And we go back to the vision of that termite, okay? Going, through the brain. It's been a belief that has been told to you by generations before, by ancestors, by your parents, by whatever, because they've been told XYZ. It's not even just your family line. It's a society. We have created this thought process that we're not worthy of receiving even rest. We're not worthy of receiving time to go on vacation or time to spend with our children when we have them. Like, we have been told this. And the problem is that, first off, let me finish this part of the message. You sit down to do your thing, but the whole time you feel guilty, you feel shameful about spending time with yourself by resting. Even though you've worked all day, even though you've done so many things, you're feeling guilt and shame, right? So really, the thing that you're doing to sit and rest, you're not actually sitting and resting. And that is the thing that's just so probably frustrating for you, because then the next day it's time to do the project and you're like, I just feel so tired. I don't want to do anything. So then you sit and you rest and you give yourself guilt and shame the whole time. The next day, same thing. The next day, now it's like, okay, I only have 4 days to get these 4 projects done. And you're like, I feel so tired, but all I've been doing is resting. Why? Because when you were resting, you weren't actually resting. On a subconscious level, you were continually telling yourself, you're lazy, you shouldn't be doing this, you're not worthy of resting, blah, 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 right? The whole time you're thinking about all the other things you should be doing, so that when it's time to actually do the tasks, you feel so beat down that you don't even want to do them. And so what do? You don't do them, right? This is a perfect example of a lack of balance in your life between work and rest, or divine masculine and divine feminine. Okay? If you don't feel worthy of receiving, even when you're sitting and relaxing, you won't actually feel like you're receiving and relaxing. I can't even tell you how many times in my life where I would sit down and watch a movie, have so much free time in my day while also working, and at the end of the day be like, God, I barely got any time to rest, or I got nothing done. And it's like, yeah, you did, but the whole time you were so distracted about everything you should be doing, instead of just sitting and receiving in the moment, receiving the rest, receiving the replenishment. You were guilting yourself through the whole thing. So you weren't actually receiving, right? So then it brings me back to the other point that Spirit is bringing up, and it's around, really like goes back to that like termite type of story. This termite, this insect that was literally put into the subconscious, put into the back of the brain, made you think that this was you. This makes you think, and this is where I was like, what the fuck, when this message came through. This makes you think that these are shadow aspects of you that you have to integrate and embody. Oh, well, it's just me. That's just how I am. And I'm going to love myself through it. And I'm going to trust it because this is my shadow self. And my shadow self, deserves love too, and blah, blah, blah. Of course, your shadow self deserves love. But I want to tell you something. Guilting yourself, shaming yourself, all of those things, that is not you. That is literally not you. It is a belief that has been ingrained in your subconscious mind through the bloodlines, through your parents from a child. You didn't come into this earth feeling guilty and shameful for sitting. You think that when you were a baby, you felt bad for sleeping? No, you didn't. The only reason why you started to feel that way is because someone told you, society told you that it was wrong. And so when we say in the spiritual world, in the healing world, whatever, that, oh, we need to integrate these parts of us. Fuck that. Why would you have to integrate guilt and shame? No, you don't need to integrate that. What you need to do is remember that that guilt and shame is not even yours. You need to come back into self and say, that's not me. I'm going to choose me and my highest potential. And I'm not going to integrate the guilt and shame into my life because it's not mine to carry. It's not mine to hold. And this is where we fuck up as spiritual leaders and as people who are coming to tell everyone, heal this and heal that. Like, You're literally asking people to honor the shadow, okay? Honor the dark energy. And I'm not saying don't honor your feelings. I'm saying honoring these disruptive and critical and mean things that are being said in our mind and saying, oh, well, that's just my shadow self. I have to just learn to love it. No, you do not. We do not negotiate with the dark. We do not negotiate with the shadow, okay? You, in your power, know who the fuck you are. And when those thoughts and things come in, you have to remember that that is not you. You were not born with that thought. That is not your physical essence of who you are. You don't actually believe this. You've been told this, and it's been buried so far in your subconscious mind because of society and because of the bloodlines that you didn't even realize that that was a thing. And when you have guilt and shame around receiving, it's not just rest that you're not getting. Let me tell you right now, if you're someone who is identifying with this message, I can guarantee you that you have guilt and shame around people giving you things. You have guilt and shame when people listen to you. You have guilt and shame when you're vulnerable and you're speaking your truth, you're being emotional, and people are there to witness you. Later on, you might feel bad about the things that you said or how you cried or feel silly, overcritical thinking. You have guilt and shame that is literally around receiving in every aspect of your life. You might feel guilty and shameful to ask the divine for money or for resources or to be stable. And this is all just a program that has been ingrained in your brain, this little termite that has literally dug itself into your subconscious mind and is now poisoning your mental space. It's poisoning the beliefs and thoughts that you have about yourself. And this is not your truth. It does not have to be your truth. You can sit here and say, this is not my trauma. This is not even me talking. When we identify and we say, oh, it's just my inner child is upset, you now are saying that critical, horrible voice in your head that's so mean to you, you now are in a position where you're like, well, that's just me beating myself up. You will never be able to fully love yourself. I'm telling you right now, you'll never fully be able to trust yourself if you believe that those horrible, overcritical, mean, destructive thoughts are actually you, because they're not. And when you can come to the understanding that those thoughts are not you, those things that you're saying is not just a shadow side, it's literally a termite that is hidden, that has been poisoning your thoughts, that have been poisoning the things that you believe about yourself. It is not you. Stop with the BS. Stop listening to people saying you need to integrate, your shadow. Listen, I know what they mean, and that's for a whole nother conversation, but at the end of the day, we do not negotiate with horrible, mean, critical, rude comments, whether it's people outside of you or it's people within your mind. Why should you have to say, oh, it's okay, it's just my wounded self? No, you wouldn't allow someone else to speak to you that way, I would hope, and if you do, we got to work that out. You wouldn't allow someone to speak that way to your child or to your best friend or to your partner or to your spouse. So why is it okay for you to accept these thoughts, accept these horrible, mean comments, and then on top of it, label it as it's just me? It's a wounded aspect of me. No, it's not. It's not you. It's never been you. And so the moment that you can take stance, and when those things come through, remind yourself no, this is not my truth. I can receive with ease. I can relax knowing that I've done a day's worth of work. Okay? So that's it. Spirit's like, okay, enough. That's the message. If you got it, you got it. If you didn't get it, maybe rewatch it. Maybe come back to this whenever you feel like, you're ready to embody this. But I want to remind you that if you're being told that these aspects of you need to be integrated or whatever, literally straight up a few months ago, I was having a meditation and I was talking to my higher self. I do this a lot where we're just having a full dialogue conversation, and I saw some critical energy come through and I was like, oh, there's my shadow self. Literally, my higher self shut the door and was like, we do not negotiate with the shadow. We do not negotiate with these horrible things. I'm so sorry, but why? No. If you know that that's not your truth, you don't need to sit with it and say, why are you here? What? No, fuck that. No, that's not you. You don't need to negotiate it with it because all it wants to do is take from you. All it wants to do is get buried in your subconscious mind so that it can live there and poison you. No more. No more negotiating with the shadow, people. I don't care, okay? And if you're someone who teaches this and you don't agree with this, I'd love to have a conversation in the comments below because this is something that I've taught before. And it's just, I don't know. Okay, anyways, love you guys so much. I gotta go. If you want to book a private reading, it's in the comments down below. And if you want to learn how to trust your intuition even more, also in the comments. And I have a freebie down there if you want to check it out. Download it, all free. Have fun with it. Enjoy it. And I'll chat with you soon. Bye.